Hi everyone and welcome to our video. In this video we're going to be going over the In My World version of the Tessellation Symmetry Adventure. I'm going to be going through an example version that I have made of these slides, which will get you an 8 out of 8 if you follow along with it, okay? So we're going to look at the slides and figure out what is it about them that was an 8 out of 8. Let's start with the sharing part, okay? So these are the 5 pictures I have taken in the real world. Obviously, I did not actually take these in the real world. I just gathered these up for evidence purposes, but I'll go through it as if I did, right? And you'll see why. So first of all, let's say I had a fish tank at home, right? So I get a picture of my pet starfish, or maybe I visited an aquarium a while back and I get a picture of that. This would be five-fold rotational symmetry. So I would label the slide with five-fold rotational symmetry, right? I could have also labeled it with 72-degree rotational symmetry, but I can see that it is rotational symmetry. I label the slide appropriately. The next slide, let's say I had this puzzle at home, right? Or I guess coffee table piece, and I would call it tessellation formed by rotation because this is a tessellation. All the pieces are identical, but I have to rotate them to get them to look that way. Now, I could have also said tessellation formed by reflections. That would be fine too. But I think this one is more clearly a rotation-based tessellation, right? While I'm taking these pictures, I'm also trying to think of that pattern to answer the reflection questions later. This is a tessellation formed by translation. Let's say my apartment building has a brick wall on the backside, right? So I would take a picture of the brick wall and boom, tessellation formed by translation, right? It's the same pattern of the brick rectangles translated over and over. So notice I just got to label the slide. That's all I need to do 5 times, right? But finding out what to label it is tricky, and I would recommend looking at your notes for that. All right, so let's say I went to Walt Disney World, right? Like I'm planning for my honeymoon. And here you can see there's bilateral symmetry. This one might be tougher to see, but if you look, the left and the right halves of the image, it's not perfect because there's people in the way, but the actual structure, the statue, right, the sculpture, they're symmetrical, right? The left and the right half mirror each other in that way. So this would be bilateral symmetry, right? And then lastly, let's say I found a picture of this fence just on a walk or something. 2 lines of symmetry and a twofold rotational symmetry. Now, which part am I specifically talking about? The whole fence or no, right? I'm talking about the shape in the middle of the fence. That shape in the middle, well, actually, the whole fence grill can kind of work, right? Except for the bottom bit, but that fancy filigree, flowering in the middle, that's beautiful for one. And for two, it's got 2 lines of symmetry. It does not have diagonal lines of symmetry, and you can check the notes to see why, but it does have a line of symmetry, vertical and horizontal, and that also gives it a twofold rotational symmetry. All right, so I've covered all 5 slides, I believe, yes, and each of them I've labeled with the kinds of lines of symmetry it has and the rotational symmetries. And notice this one had multiple, so I listed multiple, right? I could have done multiple as well for this one. I could have said it has a bilateral symmetry or even 5 lines of symmetry, right? So now this would be a 4 out of 4. I went above and beyond. Not only did I meet all the targets, 5 slides, 5 labels, but I created a stunning product by connecting the mathematical concepts reasoning to my life. This one's, I will be clear, this one's actually not too hard to get a 4 out of 4, okay? Really what I'm looking for is stuff like you included multiple kinds of symmetry, like in this slide, if I did multiple when they were all relevant, that's excellent. That's a 4 out of 4. And I need to make sure that I picked things that were a good sampling of my life, right? If all 5 of your pictures are on a desk that is right in front of your computer, less likely to get a 4 to 4, right? It'd be impressive that you found 5 things at your desk, so maybe I actually would give you a 4 to 4, but I want to see, a good sampling of your world, right? This is the in your world assignment. Give me an idea of what kind of things you like to look at or what you have around you, you know? Uh, yeah, I think I actually will give a 4 to 4 for taking all 5 things at your desk, because that's impressive. Finding 5 things while sitting. Okay, I'll give you that. But you get the idea. Show me that you really tried. Show me you were being clever about it. Show me that you were really looking, that you had fun looking. Okay. I know it might not sound super fun, but it is actually kind of interesting to try to find these things in the real world. I think you can make a game out of it. Now, the tricky part, of course, is the reflection questions. So here are my answers to the reflection questions. How common does the same tessellation symmetry on the world around you? Why do you think that is? And how are tessellation symmetries similar? How are they different? So you will notice these are relatively long. You don't need to have as long of answers as me, of course. I've seen people get 4 out of 4s on this with just a sentence, but I actually think answering with a little longer of an answer is easier for this, okay? So let's go through my answers. I saw lots of tessellation symmetries when I was taking pictures. It seems common. I think it's common because people are good at finding patterns and patterns are useful, like we talked about in class. Since we're good at finding patterns, we see them in lots of things, making it common. And tessellation symmetry are both patterns, but they're different kinds of patterns. As you can see in my pictures, tessellations are made of lots of things, but test symmetries are made of only one thing. This makes them both based on patterns, but in different ways. So Why did I use multiple sentence? Why do I think that's easier? Well, notice my sentences fall into a pattern, okay? This pattern is I have an answer, I provide evidence for my answer to support it, and then I justify how that evidence supports my answer, okay? Lots of people can give me the answer, so you'll get at least a 2 out of 4 in that way. A 3 out of 4 is when you give me the evidence to support your answer, and the justification helps you get to a 4 out of 4. Well, that's also part of a 3 out of 4. Okay, so let's go through that. If you had just told me tessellation symmetries are both patterns, but they're different kinds of patterns, I don't know what evidence you have to support that answer. Okay, I don't know what patterns you saw or what you saw that made them different, right? Give me the evidence. So that's when I add the evidence. As you can see in my pictures, right, directing you to check out the pictures, tessellations are lots of things, symmetries are one thing, right? So that would be my evidence. Now I need to make it explicit. How does that show that they're patterns and how does that differentiate them, right? So I tie that back into the first bit. This makes them both based on patterns, right? They're both made of things repeating, but the justification is that they're in different ways, but in different ways, right? So that's the justification. It connects back to my answer by tying it in. I think the left answer is even better for this, right? Answer. I saw lots of them. It seems common, but I haven't said why I think it's common. So, evidence. I think it's common because people are good at finding patterns and patterns are useful, like we talked about in class. Notice I'm citing another source, what we talked about in class, right? I would say an even better answer for this, honestly, might be if you told me what it was we talked about in class, right? Why we decided that patterns were useful. I didn't put that here because I wanted to save that for you to put in, but this would still be a good answer. Now, justification, since we're good at finding patterns, we see them in lots of things, making it common, right? So notice I've tied my evidence back into my answer to justify it. If I had just given you the evidence, I'm leaving it on you, the reader, to figure out how that supports my answer. I need to make that explicit to the reader. I need to really make it clear why this evidence is good for me, right? Why it justifies my answer. So this would be a 4 out of 4. The student has gone above and beyond, right? They not only answered the question and justified their reasoning with that evidence, but they've also connected it to their personal lives or the world around them. So notice in the second answer, right, I used my pictures as the evidence. I connected it to the pictures I took, the world around me, my personal life. And on the left, right, I talk about how people are good at finding patterns and how that applies to the real world, that we see them in lots of things. So you'll notice as well, this one, if you have a good answer to this, you're very likely to have a 4 out of 4. Why? Because you're pretty likely to have talked about the world around you because you're probably citing the evidence in the pictures you took or talking about things that apply to the world around us. So it's not too hard to get to that 4 out of 4 here as long as you're really making the connections explicit. Okay. If you got a 3 out of 4 on this, it's very likely because you didn't go in depth enough with your justification or your evidence, right? You might have given me answer and evidence, but not the justification I needed. Okay. So this would be an 8 out of 8 project. Congratulations on that, right? We got a good answer with justification through evidence, and we connected to our personal lives. And for our slides, right, we also made sure that we had a good selection of interesting slides that showed enough about the world around you that I get a little glimpse into your life. Okay? If you have any questions or further concerns or confusion about this project, please ask away. Message me on Canvas or email. I'm happy to answer. But I hope this helps you get a really good head start if you have not started already, or really finalize and double check your project before you turn it in, or even resubmit it real quick. You still got a couple days to get that in. That way you can get all the points you want. This will also help with resubmission attempts because remember, you can keep trying this project again after you turn it in and get it graded. You can resubmit it. You can try again. Okay? All right. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.